No turning back now.
I shouldn't touch my nose. Looks like I'm picking my nose. I'm watching on the
Well, and also
YouTube channel.
coronavirus.
Yeah, that too. I've been home for days though. Oh, we're streaming. We're live. Okay. Hi, everybody. You just watched 30 seconds of us talking about scratching my nose. I appreciate you guys joining us, though. I'm here with Andrew. Some of you may have seen him in one or two of my videos. He has the CNC machine, which I filmed us using, but never did any other videos on. Maybe someday we will. And we don't really have anything particular we're going to talk about today. I just kind of started wanting to do live streams, but I didn't want to do them alone. And Andrew offered to do them with me. And I figured once we get talking, we'll have good conversations. And so, yeah. So today, I was looking at my subscribe counter, which I knew was getting close to 50,000. And when I looked at it this morning, I was 11 away. And I thought, oh, that'd be cool if it happened tonight on my live stream. But then it happened like a couple hours ago. So that's exciting news because with my channel, I've been doing this for a little over. I think I started doing YouTube videos around '09, so 11 years. And I feel like my channel grew really fast up to 30,000 subscribers. And then it went really slow from there. Like it's been slowly growing since then. But then just in the last couple months, it's been growing. And I know YouTube gives out the little play buttons. I don't know if 50. I know 100,000 is one of the numbers. I don't know if you get anything for 50,000 subscribers. But just to hit that goal was pretty cool. Although looking at my YouTube, statistics, the analytics or whatever, it's funny because I have that many subscribers, but my views are way. Actually, I was gonna, let's see, go here. Gonna look at my analytics stuff because I find it funny what my top videos are. And that's what I'm gonna talk. Andrew, feel free to chime in if you have anything to say. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be talking. But that's
So go ahead and go for it.
So, in the last 40 or last 28 days, I've had almost 150,000 views. Looking at what my estimated revenue is, that means that for every view, I make about a quarter of a penny. And it's not my newer videos. My top video is one from 2016, which is writing your first shell script in Linux, or for Linux tutorial. My second one, which has been one of my top videos for a long time now, is using a USB credit card swiper, which I think just the title sounds interesting. It has in the last, I'm looking at the last 28 days, so both of those have about 4,500 views, and that one has some interesting comments. A number of people asking me how you can get the CCV, the little 3-digit number off the magnet strip. And I try to tell people the whole point of having that number is that it's not on the magnet strip. But then they'll come back and be like, yeah, but is there any way to get it off the magnet strip? It's like, no. And it's like the tutorial wasn't even necessarily on credit cards. It was just reading stuff from, magnet strips. But I put credit card in the title because I figured it would draw people in, and it did. And then my third video, which has been one of my top 2 or 3 videos for the last 4 years, is solving the 2x2 Rubik's Cube. Which, I haven't watched that video in a while. I'm betting I could do a better video because I think I recorded that video a few days after I learned how to do it.
Well, it took you 9 minutes to do a 2x2 cube. I'd say you could probably do it better, right?
9 minutes to do it or to do the video?
Do the video, but
yeah. Which the average person watches it for about 3 minutes, according to YouTube. My when I'm writing your first Linux shell script, which is also about 10 minutes long, people only watch for 2.5 minutes. I try to keep my videos short, under 10 minutes. I know a lot of people on YouTube say you should go over 10 minutes because you get more ad revenue and stuff like that. But I know when I look for videos, if I see 3 videos on the topic and 2 of them are 20 minutes long and one of them's 5 minutes long, I'm watching the 5-minute one, and I'm watching it at double speed,
Yeah, what's interesting is I wonder how that compares to my channel. Most of my videos are under a minute and a half because of my clientele. That's what they like.
Yeah.
So I should go look at that. Let me see if I can find it.
We actually have some people watching. I'm looking at the comments here. Oh,
People?
someone who subscribed after I did a live video with Luke Smith, who is another guy that does Linuxy and other type videos. So we've got at least 2 people watching. Where's the number on? Oh, we got 5 people watching.
I
So
thought that's
hi
a
everybody.
massive.
Again, this is Andrew, my buddy Andrew. Andrew owns a drone company. Right? I'm allowed to say that, right? You can say I don't want to give away your personal information, but feel free to plug your company if you want.
Yeah, no, I own Naples Drone Solutions and Professional Drone Solutions that serves all of Florida. But we're starting to branch pretty heavily into software and how to use data that we gather from drones. And Chris has been a big supporter of that push. We've been on that push for about 4 years myself, trying to learn how to starting from how to build a website all the way to relational databases and how to enter data and stuff with PHP. So it's been a ride. Talking about your top videos, my top video been one of Port Royal in Naples, which is kind of obvious in our top 15 things to do in Naples. But one that I did 2 years ago was forcing Android Wear 2.0 on an Android Wear watch. I think it was the LG Urbane version 1. And I kid you not, I just did it randomly with OBS, and that's my 4th most watched video of all time.
Yeah.
Which has a whopping 1.2 thousand views.
I'm just reading some of the comments. The last comment in on YouTube is someone said that we don't look like we're 6 feet apart. But see, that's why Andrew has the black bars around his image. That's our social distancing. But yeah, like Andrew said, let's give I'll give a quick little history about mine and your relationship.
Yeah.
Me and Andrew kind of knew who each other were for years, but didn't really know each other, right? I mean, you're pretty good friends with my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And Andrew and I started talking, and Andrew was telling me he was interested in learning some programming and learning more about computers. And I offered to teach because I'm always up for teaching. But there's so many times in life where I go to teach somebody and they're really not interested. They say they're interested, but they're not interested. And they start doing it and they realize that it's just not for them. Andrew is not one of those people. Andrew actually, there's been some projects he's working on. He's asked me to help him. And I'll start doing stuff, and like a few days later, he'll come back with some more problems. And I can see that Andrew has actually worked on the code, and I can see what he's trying to do, and I can see he's doing things I would have done 10 years ago, because it's growing as a programmer. Anytime I look at code that I did 5-10 years ago, no matter how long it's been, it's like, oh, why'd I do it like that? But I see beginner programmers, but the fact that I saw you doing stuff, and I could see what you were doing, and it wasn't the same code it was 3 days ago when I left, it was thank you for actually putting forth effort and not just expecting me to do everything for you, because that's what some people do. They'll go, oh, I have a project I want you to help me with, and then I'll go, and I'll start helping them, but really they don't want help, they just want me to do it. But go ahead.
For me, I started in web development a little bit before I had reached out to you, and I think my biggest thing when I reached out to you was I genuinely wanted to know how to do it. And so even the things that you did for me, I wanted to go back and dissect, because I knew if I'm going to maintain the code, I got to know what's going on with it.
Right.
And ultimately, I had a vision for where I wanted to go with things. And the more that we talked, the more I realized that could be done more easily than I thought. I thought that learning some of the PHP and my SQL things would be really difficult. And like even dumping to just a JSON file and pulling from that was kind of a cool moment. And I think we just talked about that like a couple months ago. And I've been using some of that and trying to learn how to implement that in some of the back end code that I've been writing, and that a buddy of mine's been helping me with as well. So, yeah.
Cool. One of the projects Andrew and I worked on a couple of years ago, I'm going to show them the little radio tower example.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I think it will show up on the live stream if I open up a new tab. Oh, new tab in the wrong screen though. Over here. New tab. Oh no, it's only showing the. Okay, so I won't show it, but I'll tell you about it. Oh, you know what? I'm watching. Duh. I'm looking at the live stream that has a delay. I think we froze.
I think we did. I wonder if there's sound. Is there sound still? Test. Nothing. Oh well, nice. Yeah. There is sound.
I'm gonna comment. Can people still hear us?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, someone said they can sound still good, but our video's frozen, right? Yeah, it's frozen here. And then come back.
Fergus with the save, letting us know how it's going.
Okay. Remove that. Technical difficulties. I'm gonna choose window. Okay, choose this. Okay, we might be back. I don't know how long we were gone for, but
Hey!
yeah. Okay, I'm not going to show that because apparently that messes things up. No, let me see. Tab over to this, and okay. So real quick, if you guys go to filmsbychris.com, Chris with a K, click on software, and under there you can click on scripts, and under this long list of stuff, look for where it says Radio Power Viewer. And this is a project Andrew and I worked on for a while. We worked on a software for his drone that it was so long ago. I'm assuming we had a Raspberry Pi and a radio dongle. And you did this both with cell phone towers and FM radio towers, right? We worked on both of those.
Yeah, we had custom built a couple cases that could go on the bottom of a drone. One of them held cell phones and just tapped into, I think you wrote a script that went on a rooted Android phone that could take the measurements from the cell phone tower. And we also had a version of it that lived on a Raspberry Pi.
That's right. We started with the Raspberry Pi because we were doing the FM radio thing. And then we switched gears and started going towards cell phone towers. So then we kind of rewrote everything to use an Android device and grab, basically it's cell strength or the radio strength and the GPS coordinates. And then after we collected all that data, we then made this 3D interface. And this is a very low poly. Andrew didn't like that I made it so low poly. He took all these images with the camera to generate 3D terrain, and it was just such a large file. I decimated the 3D texture to lower it, and we were going to rebuild like a model of a tower and stuff. But then these green dots here are actually places where we grabbed GPS location and cell phone. This one would have been cell phone, it looks like, tower, the signal strength. So you can look at all these green dots, and the greener it is, the stronger the strength is. The more orange or yellow it is, the weaker it is. And you can click on these dots, and it will tell you the GPS location, approximate height, which I think if I remember correctly, the height wasn't necessarily very pulling it was from the phone wasn't very accurate, but you knew how high.
Yeah, we had to take notes in the field. We had to take notes and put it in the software. There was an interface where we had to say what height we were flying at, land, restart it, and do a second flight if we wanted a different height, which is why we ended up doing this concentric circle view, because it made sense.
Yeah, so you can see where the drone flew. You can click on each one of these to see the information for it. So you can see like this orange one had kind of a low dB, but based on the ones around it, that's probably just a bad read. And then you can also go to tower information, tells you how tall the tower was, its location, GPS. And then under controls, you can scale the size of the points, and you can narrow it down, so if there's too many of them, you can lower how many there are. You can add more steps between them. So that was a project we worked on for a long time, and I think I started getting kind of grumpy towards the end of it. Because people always ask me, Chris, why don't you do software stuff for a living? And I said, okay, I'm looking at my screen recording, and my colors are off. My shirt is blue, but it looks red right now. And my headset's
My
blue
shirt's red
and
that
it looks
looks
red.
blue.
Yeah. What is going on? Oh well, we're not gonna stop. We're gonna keep going. Anyway, I don't like working on projects for a long time. I like to do a project, be done with it, moved on. And I think we were working on this thing for at least 7, 8 months. Then I started being like, I don't want to work on this anymore, Andrew. And Andrew's just like, a little bit more. I'm like, okay, a little bit more, but then I'm done, you know?
The
But,
little bit more was we were like 2 weeks away. I actually drove overnight to Georgia. I had a concert in Miami or Tampa that I went to with my wife, came back to Naples, and then drove all the way to West Point, Georgia to meet with a drone company that was considering like doing a joint venture with this. They'd done a lot of cell phone analytics and inspections, and this was something they were interested in. And that didn't really go anywhere, and I kind of shelved it at that point. I'm not a cell phone guy. I'm more of a construction background, so I decided to go to the construction route. We've ultimately been more successful with data applications there.
and I think our colors got fixed. It looks like it.
Yeah.
And the source code for the radio project is up on GitLab. If you go to GitLab projects, my projects, let's see, radio. It's called Radio Power Viewer.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'd still need to collect the data and have all that information for this to work. But it's basically just a Three.js project. Actually, up until today, I was actually looking at this before our 3D, before our chat, and it actually still said 3D.js template, which was a template I made for as far as the title. But yeah, it just basically loads a model that I think that I exported as a DAE from Blender, and then it just generates the points based on some I don't even remember how we collected data, either in a CSV format or actually JSON. I have JSON points for the example there. Anyway, so that was a project me and you worked on for a while. That was a big project, and
Yeah, I wonder if I have that. I wonder if I have the hardware, because I 3D printed that mount, and I had it forever in my old office, and then we moved. I kept it around because it's kind of it was a fusion of all these different technologies I was working on at the time. I was working on the software side with you, the hardware side with 3D printer. Kind of a moment of pride to have the whole thing fly.
Yeah.
And wonder where it is. Somewhere.
Like I said, you had the Raspberry Pi, and then we also just bought like the cheapest Android cell phone we knew we could root. And then I just wrote. Yeah. It was just Bash scripts too. I think we loaded up Termux, and I used that to grab GPS and cell data. Did we use Termux, or did I just use like some sort of Android terminal?
It might have been Tmux. I know that at some point
Termux.
You had some projects. You had some kind of a interface.
I think I can pull that information from either way. I know I can pull GPS data using Termux, and I can also do it just ADBing, so if it's just a regular Android shell. But as far as the cell signal strength, I don't know if off the top of my head I can't think of how to do that in Termux. Probably can, but if I couldn't figure it out, I probably just wrote it in. Oh yeah, it was so long ago. I don't remember, but it was just a shell script to collect that data. It was just basically, I think we made a web interface. I started up a web server on the phone, or something like that. That's how I would normally do it. You click start, and it just starts dumping all the data to a plain text file, and then I think we pulled that, and then had another shell script that sorted it all out into some sort of CSV file, and then took that and converted it to a database or something.
That part, I think, was the first... that I had to learn SED to do that. And I remember staying up hours at night learning just how to basic... I think I wrote like 15 SED commands.
If I remember correctly, because you get the GPS location in a string, and it's probably JSON, and I was probably trying to just cut or set it out, and I had it going where it was giving me the latitude and longitude, but then sometimes it would, like if it got a good GPS signal, also it would start giving you height, and it would shift everything over a column. Yeah. And so then I had to rewrite the code to take into account for that, because I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, it was fun for the first 6 months, and then it started getting like, I'm tired of working on this, because I like doing hardware stuff. I like little Arduino clones. I like the ESP8266 and ESP86 chips, but I'm primarily a software guy, and I think the main reason is because of the instant gratification. Because
No.
you write code, every line you write does something. It either works or it doesn't, and it does something. Or with hardware, it's like, okay, got to connect this wire to this wire, solder this, and you spend, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, it's like, now let's see if it worked. And
Yeah.
so a lot of the stuff I even do on those devices is just like basic either button or switch, and then the rest is just software. Because I just like that instant gratification of do it and be done, and everything I do, like even if you're programming a video game, it's like, oh, now there's a sprite on the screen. Oh, now he's moving. Oh, now I can control him with a button press. You know, and I mean, at least that's with higher level languages. You know, obviously if you're programming in, well, even if you're programming in assembly, which I've done very, very, very little bit. I read a tutorial on creating a bootloader and made a disk image and then booted that up in an emulator and just had some words come up on the screen, and when I press buttons on the keyboard, it typed what I was typing. But even that, it's like each thing you do actually does something. So it's even if you got to do a lot in assembly to get a small amount done, each thing does something.
That's fair. I forget, was it with you or was it a different piece of hardware I bought? And it might have been both. We had battery problems, and when we had a battery issue, the file didn't finish, and we lost all our data every single time. Um, and that's like a perfect example. I know for a fact one of the GPS units we bought did this. So we'd go out and do a hour and a half long flight. We'd get back to the office, and none of the data would be there, which is a big kick in the pants.
That's because most things I would do would dump directly to a file, so even if it lost battery power, it would be in that file. But I don't know.
Yeah. I think we might have had some that only came back. You know what? I think what it was is when we had that altitude issue, that screwed up the files pretty significantly, if I remember. We had something like that where we took
It does sound
took
familiar.
longer than it should. It took like a week just to figure a small issue out for the exact reason you're saying. You have to hook everything up, get it all running, run it, then unhook it all up, bring it back in, see if it worked, and then tweak, and then redeploy.
And you know what? I'm thinking about. We definitely weren't using Termux because when you use Termux to get GPS coordinates, it gives you very nice formatted JSON output.
That must be
And
nice.
and when you do it from Android, it's I think there's some JSON in there that we probably could have cut out, and we were trying to use Sednock. I think this is probably, again, this is 3 or 4 years ago, I would say, and I don't think I knew about JQ, which is the program for parsing through JSON. So we were probably doing sed and cut and knock, and so if something else showed up in there, and yeah, it was probably could have been done better. Someone wrote XML will never die, and then someone else wrote XML is going to die. I've never actually done much with XML. I prefer JSON. I think it's easier to read, and I think it takes up less. There's less characters on the screen. But I haven't really done much with parsing through. In the day I've done, if I'm parsing through XML, I'm usually using cut and sed and grep and stuff like that. Where JSON, obviously, if I'm in the web browser can handle it. JQ in the shell, or even I've been doing the last couple of days a lot of stuff with Phantom JS, which is for web scraping and stuff like that. And I've got some videos on that coming up. I'm actually I've got a lot of videos. Usually I try to schedule maybe 2 videos a week. But what I did was I was like a month or 2 ahead, and I scheduled 2 videos each week, and I was like, I got other stuff I want to talk about, so I started putting videos in between that. Now I've got a video almost every day for the next 2 months. Like, I'm trying to separate them so there's a little time for people to watch. I don't want to spam people's YouTube inboxes, but until I think the next at least month and a half, I have a video almost every day or at least every other day. But I've got a lot of different topics coming up. And I'm going to be doing a few on web scraping. I've also got a long list of tutorials of stuff I want to go over. But yeah, XML, I've never done much with it. I know it was used a lot back in the day. I think it's used less now because JSON is used more. And
It's a good bit in machine learning. That's been when I've really interacted with it. It's as I've started to try to learn machine learning, which is not
yeah.
not for the faint of heart.
And I've done nothing with machine learning, AI type stuff. I've watched videos on it. It's just not something that I personally find. I find it interesting, but not interesting to do. I guess. For me, anyway. Anytime I look into it, first of all, when it comes to that sort of stuff, it's loads and loads of data. And I hate things that are big. I hate when files get big. That's why I decimated your tower model
Yeah.
in the radio thing. Which we talked about having a lower poly model load, and then eventually, and then once the other one loads, because it's just a matter of loading its RAM. In fact, that's one of the videos I have coming up. It was actually the video that was supposed to post tonight. I recorded it like a month ago. It was going to post tonight, and then I moved it up 3 days from now because we're doing the live stream, and I didn't want the video to go live and then our live stream. But it's actually a video I did on people argue over different programming languages, and I personally have programming languages. Huh?
Do they? They argue over file types too, apparently.
Is that what? Yeah, they do. YAML. What is YAML? That sounds familiar. And anyway, you guys talk about that while I talk about this. Yeah. So people argue, like, I do most of my stuff as Bash scripts or as JavaScript. Two things that people will complain are super slow. Shell scripts are slow, and it comes down to the whole speed of the program, speed of development, trying to find that medium. It's like, I can create stuff fast and maybe run fast, and yeah, I agree. You should write your program efficiently so it runs well. And you could always do better, Even if you're writing in C, I could be like, well, why aren't you writing in assembly? And yeah, if I'm doing something that's got to process a whole lot of data, then yeah, I'm probably not going to want to use Bash. Probably going to want to use a lower level program like C. Although I do have a story about that. But for me, when it comes to programming language, first of all, just pick something that is free. Don't use Visual Basic. I used Visual Basic for years back in the day, but don't use a programming language that 5 years from now you're not going to have access to, or 10 years from now. It's like, basically your program is depending on somebody else's something that you may not have access to because they can pull it away or change it to make it obsolete. Where most languages, that's not an issue. But the video that I was going to post today, that's going to post in a couple of days from now, I gave an example where I took this model of a 3D model of an army tank, right? And I cloned it out, so there was like 50 of them or something, and that then made that model a scene file, and that scene was, I want to say it was 100 megabytes. I don't know. I recorded the video a while ago. It was large, and I loaded that up in Three.js in the web browser, and it took like a minute to load.
Sure.
But loading it up in Blender still took, I think, 30 to 45 seconds. And part of the time in the Three.js was actually downloading the file before it loaded to RAM, which is something that you'd have to download it at some point anyway, and you can cache that. So then I took that and I rewrote the code. And my point was, yes, there are languages that are faster than others, but you can write something in C that, if you write it horribly, it's going to run horribly, where I can write something in JavaScript, which might be a slower language, but write more efficiently. So what I did then was I took that code, and I took one model of the 3D tank, and then I set up a scene with, or first I did it where I just had it, in a grid, load that up, so it just loads the model once, and then makes clones of it. And I think it took like 7 seconds, or 5 or 7 seconds for that to load, and it was the same number of models. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe you don't want to load them in a grid. Maybe you want to load them in a scene at a certain spot. Well, I load the model once, and then I had a scene that just had empties. In Blender, you can set empties. I exported that, imported that into Three.js, so now I had these models of the tanks where I wanted them, rotated the way I wanted them, and it loaded in 6 or 7 seconds, and I could have still had 50 of them, because it was the time it was taking to load those models, where if you just load one of them and clone them, it's a lot faster. My point was just, be a good programmer, and I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what programming language you're using, but I think being a good programmer is more important than what programming language you're using. That's going to upset a lot of people that I say that.
Well, and I definitely think that from my vantage point, especially working in the construction industry, I have a kind of an interesting take on it, where I don't mind inefficient software as much as most developers, I think, do, because my whole goal is to just be better than doing it. Like, we still have people on war boards doing scheduling with magnets that they stick on a whiteboard. And if I can be better than that and more efficient than that, I mean, terrible programming can do hundreds of times better than that.
Yeah.
So it's like the bar for me isn't that high in that regard, which, by the way, as a newbie programmer is a fantastic thing. There's like zero pressure whatsoever. And similarly, the developers that I've worked with outside of yourself, like it's been an adjustment period for them because I'm like, no, we need to rapid prototype this and actually flesh it out in the field before we actually build out the full program, because I don't want to spend 50 hours completely building out this one little feature if it's not even going to be used by the guys in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, Silicon Valley's terrible at that. They'll get hundreds of millions of dollars in funding and build a program that they're hoping a lot of people need without actually taking the steps as they're going through it to flesh out what's going on in the field and how people utilize it. And not that it's a problem, it's just a different way that I see not many people thinking of as like practical programming. Like, let's, instead of making it perfect, let's make it work and do something.
Well,
first.
That comes down to kind of like they say art. I forget who, it's some artist back in the day. It was a famous quote of, art is never finished, just abandoned. Like it's like you can always work more on your art. I feel software's the same way. I can continuously work on something and improve it, but eventually I'm going to move on. But sometimes I find myself like, I can just write something in a couple of minutes, a simple little program. But then I'm like, oh, but I'm going to take my time and write it a certain way in case I want to add more features later. And I spend all this time doing this stuff, and then I never use that program again. and I think it's better, like you're saying, write the program, get it working. At least you have something. You can always go back and clean it up and make it more efficient, but have it working. And a lot of people don't do that. But you're talking about like the people with the whiteboards. Like when I go to work, there's so much done with paperwork. We're filling out paperwork, and I anytime I go anywhere and someone hands me a piece of paper to fill out, or the doctor's office or whatever, I'm like, they don't really care about this. And half the time I won't fill it out, or I'll scribble, like I'll go to the doctor's office and scribble random stuff in the fields and give them back to them because they're not going to look at it. And you know what? If it was important, it'd be put in a computer. And if I'm writing it and you're going to put it in a computer, you're still going to work, just make a form. It's like I said, at work right now with the whole coronavirus thing, I go to work and twice a shift we have to take our temperatures, log whether we have a cough, whether we're feeling tired, and sore throat. There's 3 things we have to check. First of all, someone made this little form, and it's horrible because and I'm actually going to be doing a video, probably a series of videos on this topic. It's like, maybe it took them 5-10 minutes to make this form in Excel. Well, we have an IT guy. He should be able to write a web form that can submit stuff in 5-10 minutes. I know I could write it in a bash script in about 3 minutes because I've already done it. and yeah, the web form, just a basic web form, would take 5-10 minutes to someone who's knowledgeable, which if you're working in computers, you should be able to create a simple web form. And about the same time as creating the Excel form.
Yeah.
Spend another 15-20 minutes and you can make it really nice. And then you can use, if you make it modular, again, making those features for later on, if you're doing this all the time for work, you start making these modules where you could drop in, oh, you need to select an employee. You make a little module where you go, okay, now anytime I have a form someone needs to select an employee, I just drop this little module in there, and I'm going to be doing videos on that. I actually already wrote this software, and I just need to record tutorials on it. But it's ridiculous, because these forms, again, you write your name in one column, and then it's got 3 columns. Well, it's got a column for coughing, a column for do you feel sluggish or sleepy or whatever, but it's got a column that's empty boxes, and then a column that says no next to it. So I started filling out the form, and I'd circle no. Then I go back a few days later and I see other people on other shifts aren't circling no, they're checking the box next to it. And I'm like, are they checking yes? I'm like, no, that column doesn't say yes. I guess the checkbox means no, but some people are circling it, some people are checking it. Some people you can't read their names because their handwriting's so bad. We get an email because some people are sending these forms to the wrong people. we get an email from one of the battalion chief of the shift, or the battalion commander, I should say, the battalion commander of the shift, saying, "Stop sending me these forms. They're not supposed to go to me." So people are filling out these forms. They're not going to the right people. You can't read them. And there's 3 or 4 of them laying on the desk. I don't know if these have been sent to anybody or if they're just sitting on the desk here. Someone's just going to throw them out. Where if it was a form on a computer, it would automatically be time-stamped. People's names would be selected from a list. You click a button, yes or no, click submit, and it's logged right away. And then you can sort through it later. It's just having paper-written stuff this day and age. And then it's even worse when people fill out forms and then scan it. It's like, just make a form that people can submit. And I've been saying this I've been working for the fire department for 16 years now. And 12 years ago, probably longer than that, but actually, I actually was working on stuff for the fire department. Then I had an argument with our old chief, and that just ended badly. But I actually wrote a lot of software for them. But the one of the things we did, we used to have, so at some of the stations we have fuel, so we could fuel up the truck. Each shift, we make sure, because you don't want to run out of truck get fuel with a fire truck, right? So we have these forms where we'd have to write down the mileage of the truck, and we'd have to write down the fuel gauge on the pump, and how much we pumped, and the date and time, and the start and the end, and all this stuff. And we were sharing those pumps with other departments. Well, one of the other departments said, "Well, we can't read any of this paperwork. We don't believe that you're billing us for the right amount. We're not paying." So then they copped out on it. And it's like, we have all these forms that no one can read, and then they just get shoved in a file somewhere. And then what they would do is, when someone would get hurt and they would have to go on light duty, here's a stack of paper, put them in an Excel form. It's like, so now years later, you're going to input all this, where literally 5 minutes, someone could create a HTML form that submits to a database. And the whole light duty thing, there's always stuff that people can be doing. It's not like now there's nothing for people to do on light duty. There's always answering phones or delivering supplies and that sort of stuff. So that's not a concern, because that's something some people would say. They'd be like, "Oh, well, they're doing that so that you have something to do on light duty." There's plenty to be done.
Yeah, and I think too, you end up with the ability to utilize that data and find trends and patterns in that data in the future that help inform decisions. As like an executive, that's huge for a company. Being able to go back and go, "Oh, we've pumped all this fuel and we find that this station's using 50% of the fuel and driving 20% of the miles."
Yeah. Huh. And also, it's like they were concerned about people stealing fuel. It'd be very easy to track if it was computer-based. But we aren't even allowed to use those fuel tanks anymore. We have them at almost all our stations, but they've locked them up. They decided, because keeping track of it was too hard, I think was their main reason. Because of the paperwork and stuff, they've put locks on them, and they've given us all gas cards that we have to go to the local gas station. So we have to drive the fire truck to the gas station and use these debit cards. And they've given us 2 debit cards for each station. One for the truck and one to fill up fuel tanks for things like the Jaws of Life and chainsaws and stuff like that. And people constantly, even though on my truck, the one that's for the fuel, for the gas cans for the chainsaws and stuff, we've put it in a Ziploc bag, duct taped around it, right? This is not for the truck. And people will still, a driver who's not the regular driver there comes there, they tear it open and use it. And then we get, emails from higher ups saying, "Oh, you used the wrong thing and you screwed up our numbers." And even though one of the reasons they did this was because of the paperwork, and supposedly now, because it's all debit card, they get a statement each month, we still have to print a receipt, initial receipt, fill out a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, and someone comes around each month and collects those.
Yeah. Bare, but yeah. No, that's funny too. The crazy thing about that is you're also buying gas at retail versus being able to get it at distributed prices, right?
And think about this. This is a big deal 2 years ago with Irma. We had to wait in lines at the gas stations to get fuel for our trucks.
They didn't just unlock the gas tanks?
They're there for emergencies, and I suppose if they had to. I'm not going to say more about this because I don't think anyone from work's going to watch this, but I don't want to get in trouble for saying things about my department. I love my job. But yes, there's some decisions that, that.
Well, and I'll say too, I've had my fair share at a number of enterprises in leadership positions. My father owns a company, and I kind of grew up with unique perspective into those big decisions. And there's such thing as like enterprise waste. It happens. I mean, not everything can run perfectly efficiently. So these are typical things that go on. But from a programmer's perspective, there's better ways that they could be done. And I think having the ability to execute them and desire to is a good thing. So if anyone from the fire station is watching this, it comes from a passion to help.
It does. I love my job. I just want to make it better. And like I said, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I tore my bicep, right? So I was on light duty for a couple of months. And the chief at the time said, "Hey, Chris, I want you to set up a website," because we didn't have a website at the time. I'm like, "Okay, here's the deal. I'll create a website, but I'm going to create it with forms and stuff we can use. Everything I'm going to write is going to be open source. And I also want to teach everyone," because there's been times where they've sent out software and they tell us to use it, but they don't give us classes on it. And software should be intuitive, but lots of times it's not. And the chief at the time loved everything I was doing. People were coming to me, "I don't know what you're doing, but the chief can't stop talking about it. He loves it, loves it." And then me and him had a disagreement. Actually, me and the IT guy at the time had a disagreement. He took the IT guy's side, and then all of a sudden it was a big falling out, and we stopped talking, and yeah. And then everything I created, none of it ever got used.
Oh, at least you're able to use that for your own purposes. Right?
Yeah, but again, looking at what I did 10 years ago, I was very new to HTML forms, and I don't think I knew anything about databases. I was dumping everything to plain text files, which means if I needed to update a field, it was basically find this line, change this line, delete the line, add the line back in. It was really horrible. Really, really horrible on the back end. It worked, but it was really horrible on the back end, and I would have completely rewritten by now, and I didn't know anything, web design. Basically, it was just plain HTML buttons, but I would make the font really big to make the buttons clickable on smaller screens because about that time, smartphones were just becoming a thing, and I didn't have a smartphone at that time, but I had my Nokia. Well, I had my Nokia N700, N800, and 900. I had one that was a tablet first, and then I eventually did get the smartphone, which I still have. So basically, it was like a smartphone, but it didn't have cellular. It just had Wi-Fi connections, and you could do Skype calling on it. But yeah, that was 10 years ago. I got like 5 more minutes to talk. So anyone in the comments have any questions? And Andrew, if you have anything to say. Also, for people who are joining us now, this is Andrew. Say hi. And
Hello.
I hope to do more of these videos with Andrew in the future. And this is kind of a test run.
Sure. As long as they don't think I'm boring.
And I actually, what's my occupation? I'm a firefighter.
I fly drones.
Yeah, I'm a firefighter. He owns a drone company, NaplesDroneSolution.com.
Yep, NaplesDroneSolutions.com.
Yeah, check that out if you're in Naples and you need someone to fly a drone. You do pretty much anything with drones, right? You do a lot of stuff for construction stuff, surveying, that sort of stuff.
We actually just flew twice that fire at RSW. At the international airport there, we got special clearance to fly at the airport. And there was a big 4,000 car fire here in Southwest Florida at the airport. And we were contacted by a couple insurance companies to be able to do that, and ended up on the phone with someone that actually had the ability to say we could. And so we did that. So we do all crazy kinds of stuff. A lot of inspection work, a lot of survey work.
And Andrew's an actual licensed pilot too. He doesn't just fly drones. So
Yep. So it's a lot of fun.
Someone asked, how did you get into tech as a firefighter? I was into tech first. I've actually, for years, have wanted to do a video on my YouTube channel called, I want to do one on why my YouTube name or my screen name is MetalX1000, which originally it was something else. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But I've wanted to do a video on MetalX1000 origin stories, like a comic book thing, where
There you go.
basically tell my life story. Quick synopsis of tech computers in my life. When I was young, I would say I can remember it, and I lived in New York. I moved to Florida when I was 10, so we're looking at somewhere between 6 and 10. My family got a computer. It got put in my room. It was an IBM computer, ran DOS, had 2 large floppy disk drives and an internal hard drive, but ran DOS. But it didn't go straight to a DOS prompt. It actually had like a menu to go through. It was like a screen with a list of programs on it. I wish I remember exactly what model IBM computer it was. And it had, I think it was called Printmaster, early Printmaster, where it was a DOS program where I can go in and you can design with your mouse big blocks. You can design cards and print up greeting cards and stuff like that. And it had a word processor and maybe 1 or 2 other programs on it. But my dad taught me, when we're done, you go down to the exit option. That brings you to a DOS prompt. You type exit, and then you turn off the computer. I really don't think all that was necessary, but that's what I was told to do. But you see movies, people type in cool stuff on the keyboard. So I get to this prompt, and I'm like, I wonder if I can get to do other things. So I'm just a kid, so I just start typing words I know to see if anything happens. And I remember like typing copy, and it said, error, file input needed or something like that. But it was different than command not found. I'm like, oh, I did something. I don't know what. And I'm like, help. Oh, it popped up some help information that didn't mean anything to me. And basically it was just that curiosity. I was just typing random words. And some of them happened to be commands, And that was my first experience with computers. Then my uncle had a Windows 3.1 computer. And I went over there and I loved Microsoft Paint. And I would actually make little animations in it. And it would blow people's minds that I would do this. And for those of you who are not familiar with Paint, Andrew, you weren't even born at this time, so I don't take you. So with Paint, you have this canvas, and they call it MS Paint now? It used to just be called Paint, I think. They changed the name, and it looks very similar, but it's still very different. Well, I guess it doesn't look similar anymore. Anyway, I would paint like a road with trees in the background, and then I'd scroll over in the canvas and paint a car. And then I would use the cut tool to cut around my car. And then you'd be able to drag it like you were putting it somewhere. And I would do like little animate. Like it wasn't really animating. I was just dragging this around. People were like, how? It would blow people's minds. How are you making that car move around the screen in Paint? I'm just dragging it, So there's that. And then when I was 13 or 14, so mid-90s, my sister got a Windows 95 computer. Shortly after that, we got Naples Freenet, which was free dial-up we had here in Naples, and my sister, her now husband, I think it was he had a demo, a shareware version of Doom, and on the shareware version, it had a bunch of editors because that game was, even before it was open sourced, it had level editors and you can edit the characters and the sounds. So I just started messing with that game, and that was really when I got into, I wasn't even really doing programming, but just modifying programs at the time. But it was just the curiosity of playing with programs. And I remember taking a programming course in high school, my freshman year, and learning about if-then statements. And then going into the folder for Duke Nukem on my computer, and finding a text file that had if-then statements in it. And I was like, and I found if I changed them, the executable would run these changes I made. So I remember going in there and finding the part, because in one of the differences between Doom and Duke Nukem was jibs. You hit someone with a rocket launcher, pieces fly out, right? I found that line. I found words. I was looking for stuff for rocket launcher stuff, and I saw jibs, and I didn't know what jibs were. I'm like, it said it like 3 times. It said, when this enemy dies at this, jib, jib, jib. So I went in there and I said, jib, 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 jib. I copied it a couple times, and a bunch of arms and legs. And then I copied and pasted it like 50 times. And I went into Duke Nukem and I shot this guy with a rocket launcher. And the screen turned red and I saw all these legs and arms and stuff. And then the game just froze. But yeah, it was just the whole curiosity. And that's a big thing. I had someone at work. Anytime they have a problem with a computer, they ask me, even if it's a program I've never used before. We actually have computers in the trucks now, which was something 10 years ago when I was on light duty I was helping initiate, and then stopped, and for like 3 or 4 years, those computers sat in a closet, and they took it out, and they were all outdated. Anyway, but my lieutenant will ask me, how do I do this on the CAD program, the computer aided dispatch program? I'm like, I sit back here, I don't know, but I'll come up there and look. And I had a lieutenant once, I went up there and I started clicking on stuff. He goes, see, that's why you're good at computers, because you're not afraid to click on stuff. I go, you know what, you can not be afraid too. It's like, don't be afraid, it's just software. Software can always be reinstalled. Click on stuff. Most likely you're not going to screw stuff up, and if you do, uninstall it and reinstall it. Even if it's a department computer. Just start clicking on stuff. There was a question here, I think. Let me see. Someone asked, Andrew is younger than you, so no respect, but it looks like your father. Wait, you're saying Andrew looks like my father? Or I look like his father?
I think that's what he's trying to say. I said you might have more hair than me, and your eyes are a little bit bluer than mine.
Well, Andrew actually gave me a big compliment the other day. I sent out Easter photos, and he thought I looked very young in it. Thank you. The difference between me and Andrew is Andrew's balding up front, and I'm balding in the back. So put us together, and you either get one man with a full head of hair or a completely bald man. I'm not sure which.
No idea.
But Andrew is 8 years? No, wait, no. You're 8 years young. How much younger are you? I'm born in 81. You're born in 94?
Yeah.
So you're I'm going the wrong way. You're 13 years younger than me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 12 years. Yeah, 13, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
So and like I said at the beginning of the video, he's friends with my sister-in-law, who is 10 years younger than my sister, who is 3 years younger than me. So, wait, did I say that? Did that make any sense? My wife is 3 years younger than me. Her sister is 10 years younger than her. And Andrew and her are about the same age. You're a year or two older.
His wife is 3 years younger than him. And her sister is 10 years younger than she is. How old is...
Party in the front, this in the back. Andrew is 40.
Andrew's 40.
No. I'm 39. Andrew's 20-something, right?
Yeah, I'm actually from Saudi Arabia. I never told you either. So that wire transfer the other day. Yeah.
He's a prince.
Yep.
He's had the same age woman now. I'm 27. I'm just looking if there's any last questions before we finish this up. It's about 10 after 9.
Now we get to know how old everyone is.
Yep, everyone's... Yeah, what's the date range? So someone else was born in 93, so they're just a little bit older than you. Someone was born in 82, so they're a little bit younger than me. So that's what everybody watching this video, comment how old you are. How many people are watching right now? 20. We have 20 views.
Yeah.
20 people watching right now.
That's more than some of my videos have.
Well, I'm hoping that if we do live videos regularly, if you don't mind,
I'm down.
and we maybe get a schedule, maybe we'll get more people watching. And if I announce it ahead of time, I didn't announce it ahead of time because I was afraid it wasn't going to work out, and it almost didn't. Because as you can see up in the corner, we're using Jitsi, which I've only used a couple of times. Actually, Andrew helped me test it the other day. And I saw that it had a button stream to YouTube. And I kept trying to using it right before we went live. And it kept going, all streams are busy, all streams are busy. And I didn't want to share my whole screen because I was afraid that I might accidentally show something private on a live chat. So then I tried setting up another computer, my old ThinkPad here. And first I booted up what was on it, which was a extremely old version of Linux Mint. And it's so old that OBS was not in the repositories. So then I plugged in my keychain, which I booted MX Linux and installed OBS. And then it told me that my GPU isn't supported or drivers need to be installed. And so then I'm like, okay, just going back to my regular desktop. And I chose, instead of streaming the whole screen, I knew you could do this, and I should have done this from the beginning. I can just stream an individual window, but it's a web window. I was just afraid that I was going to accidentally go to, my email account and show some bank information or something. I don't know. But I don't think that happened.
Your password has been changed to 12345 for username admin at your bank.
How did you know? How did you know?
Yeah, I can read.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to end this live stream, or we're just going to keep going. Plus, my doors is closed, and I have a big light on me, so I'm getting very hot in here.
There you go.
Everyone have a good evening, and again, we'll do a live stream again soon.
Have a good one, guys.
And I should have been in the screen to shut it off. One more time. Wave goodbye, and stopping stream.